2019 Informal County Commission meeting. We have 4 people that like to address the commission tonight. I'll call your name. I'd ask you to come to this podium over here to my right. If you would, please just give us your name again and your address. And for all of our speakers or the folks that would like to address the commission, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once the timer is gone off, you should hear it, and we will ask you to wind your comments up. So the first person to address the commission tonight is Melissa Hogan. Ms. Hogan. Ms. Hogan, Melissa Hogan. No? Okay. Ms. Shauna Lunn.
Shauna Lunn, 3370 Brownsville Road. Thank you, Mayor Durrett and Commissioners, for allowing me to speak here this evening. Growing up on a farm and having to move to the city, I always felt something was missing. I missed that farm life. I missed the agriculture, the animals, and the fresh, healthy food it afforded. Almost 8 years ago, we made the move back out of city limits and into the county to try to get a piece of that back. We started a flock of chickens and a nice garden to provide for our family. We've had this flock for over 6 years. So it was a huge surprise when we received a letter that says that our coop is now in violation. We had no clue and couldn't imagine how this could happen when we have neighbors who buy eggs from us. They come over and visit our flock. And a good friend and neighbor whose yard actually overlooks our flock is now learning from me how to raise her own. She's a New York City girl and sees and appreciates the agriculture that's in this county. In 2012, Inside City Limits did a study to see the benefits versus risks of poultry and housing and found the benefits great enough to pass a city ordinance allowing poultry housing to be a mere 10 feet from property line, as a clean and well-maintained coop or livestock house should hold no smells. To look at the county resolution and see that it states a very excessive feet of 200 feet from property lines for a coop begs one to question how county can have less rights than city. In all of my research, I have found no other counties, none, that does this. Plenty of studies have shown that poultries make no more noise than any other animal. They actually make less. Even a rooster's crow registers the same decibels as a barking dog. More benefits are chickens are great pest and rodent control, and their feces actually makes a great fertilizer that breaks down in hours rather than days as opposed to other animals. Backyard eggs, whether they're from chickens, ducks, turkey, quail, or guinea, are healthier and better tasting than those from a store, largely due to better care and being able to roam a free yard. Going beyond the poultry side, many people out in the county have goats and other livestock to provide for their families. Providing from our families is our goal. Living in Tennessee, a farming state that prides itself on its agriculture, and living in the county outside city limits, one would expect that we would be able to have this lifestyle that we have worked so hard for. This is what we're asking you all to see here tonight. To see the need to preserve what agriculture Montgomery County has left. Far too much has already been lost due to urban growth, housing, and businesses. City has come out and taken from county enough. We're simply asking for our rights to have our animals and for our animals to have a safe and clean home within a reasonable distance to the property line, just as the city has done. We ask that you help us to preserve this way of life, whether we have a smaller flock in a neighborhood outside in the county or a larger flock and more animals out on more land. They all deserve nice, warm, safe housing, and we deserve the right to be able to provide that to them closer to our property lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lund. Alejandro Ponce de Leon.
My name is Alejandro Ponce de Leon. I reside at 4006 Apple Road here in Sango, Tennessee. I'm here representing myself and also to give support in favor of changing the resolution adopted in July 1973, specifically Chapter 5. In the past 3 years, I have met with many residents in the county that are going through the same situation, that are being affected by the same chapter. In the past, we are requesting a change to the distance from 200 feet to a distance that is fair to accommodate chicken coops. The city has managed allowing distance of 10 feet, just like Shauna said. with a permit fee which generates funds for the city. Why are we far behind the city? Instead, county residents receive letters of violation made anonymously because we have chicken coops. Owning chickens is not breaking the law, so you take the chicken coops away. There are residents that are low income that have had these animals for years, and some depend on them for food and money. Some residents do not have the money to buy acreage to fit the coop in accordance to that 1973 resolution. City officials have responded to residents to buy a bigger lot. An acre averages about $45,000 in Montgomery County, unless you buy it out in the sticks. This resolution still has a negative effect to those folks that have 5 acres or less. Some residents have had this activity for more than food and a source of income. Some use it as a way to cope with issues they have due to the scars of war. Yes, soldiers find this activity soothing and therapeutic. Soldiers are retiring in this county with the same idea of owning a flock of birds to beat their scars, yet they do not know what the county has waiting for them. Some of the properties that have been targeted in the county will range in the size of 1 acre to 2 acres with no HOA, but yet the same resolution has been applied to them. This same resolution has been construed to restrict agricultural zoned properties from conducting AG activities in total contradiction to what the resolution states. Animal control requires that we shelter small animals from freezing and certain death to small animals. In the state of Tennessee, Department of Agriculture also requires that animals are treated in a humane way by providing shelter during inclement weather. In Tennessee, we have both. We have really cold winters and really hot summers. Educational value to the 4-H programs, which is dependent on federal, state, and private contributions. The county 4-H program is not here to speak because they respond to the county. How many times have I taken in birds from schools or kids that have links to this program but don't have the ability to keep those chickens? Veterans need the resolution to pass in favor of allowing coops in smaller sized lots. But your residents, your hometown residents, also want to hold on to the basic need of being able to provide for their families through this activity that is emblazoned on the county seal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barry Smitto.
Governor Lee emailed, and I'll tell you all about that in a minute, so I'm literally flying by the seat of my pants while sitting on the edge out of control.
If you would, please give them your name and your address, Mr.
Barry
Smitto.
Smitto, 2402 Old Ashton City Road. I was trying to save 10 seconds there. Before Mayor Durrett took office, animal control and volunteers were seen in the paper in huge arguments about things, so he's made some improvements there and in other ways. I've rescued about 70 feral cats and 30 adult cats between 2 assisted livings, and more have died and I paid all the expenses. And you'd think I'd be able to get communications from animal control, but after I spoke here and told y'all about that I didn't get a response when I said due to needing cancer surgery, I need a response from helping resolve this ASAP. I got no response. Long story short, Mayor Durrett told me that he told the director to call. When we resolved the fact he had the wrong phone number, he still never called. And I'm just really distraught at everything going on. And there's also, at the same time, he is communicating with other people, as seen on Facebook. And there are rescues here. The animal control stats really don't cover, they exclude everything that's happening outside of animal control big time. One rescue that is named in a summary I'll link you to, and it's in the agenda. They have written that they're desperate 2 times in the last month, desperate for money and desperate to pay vet bills. And you can see all that at the fourth post at helpinganimalslinks.blogspot.com. That's helpinganimalslinks.blogspot.com. Animals and Links has an S on it. I'm saying that for citizens who might be interested. The second most important thing to tell you about is on that same site, I link you to proofgodexists.net. There are so many examples of complexities in life that prove God exists. And I think it's just really important that we follow the Bible's, what it says, including regarding animals, as such as not a sparrow falls apart from God's shoulder. The second link shows links you to a booklet I wrote called Save Millions of Lives. I've given the previous commissioners a 32-page booklet with that. And it has quotes from animal shelter directors all over the U.S. telling about heartbreaking overcapacity shelters, many in Middle Tennessee. Governor Lee emailed, he's very interested. I got that this morning. That's seen in the first link. I'm about to run out of time probably. Representative Bruce Griffey, state representative from Paris, has a petition to, he's got a bill that he's presenting to improve animal welfare. Y'all should vote for it and help support it, just so maybe I won't keep coming and bugging y'all speaking. This is probably my 12th time here. And that is linked in the first link at helpinganimalslinks.blogspot.com. I'll do a niftier name. I just literally just wrote this speech, and I'll change the name and link to that later. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Smitto. All right, at this time, we're going to call our informal meeting to order. Our first order of business is an agricultural extension annual update. Miss Rebecca Norman. How are you tonight, Rebecca?
Well, good evening. I appreciate the time to give you our annual update from the Ag Extension Office. And for some of the folks that I haven't had an opportunity to meet individually yet, just a quick summary of what we do. We are a jointly funded department here within the county between the Land Grant University, two of the land grants, TSU as well as University of Tennessee, and the county. So we are funded by grant funds, by state funds, by federal funds, and by county funds. And so the purpose of our office is to provide research or discovery-based information for all the citizens in this county. And the purpose is that we, all citizens here, can live more effective lives. And if you think about Stephen Covey and what the definition of effectiveness is, it's being successful at what's most important to you. And probably everyone in this room would have a different agenda of what their values are and what's most important to them and what effective living would look like. And so we're here to answer those questions. How do I? And we get those questions all the time. And I have shared with you an impact for 2018. Now that's actually 11 months, January through November. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what we've done in our office. We've had answered 9,937 letters or phone calls. We've had 653 group meetings, 433 site or farm visits. And so we answer basically 3 program areas. If someone has any questions regarding anything in the agriculture or natural world, so that means production ag, we work with producers here in the county, livestock, row crops, vegetable crops, fruit crops. We also work quite a bit with homeowners, folks who have questions about their lawns or shrubbery or insect ID or any of those things. And we can diagnose disease, we can provide control recommendations for whatever the issues are. We also train commercial folks who serve homeowners in that area. So that's ag and natural resources. We also do work in family and consumer sciences, and that's anything to do with the human being. So it's about relationships, it's about budgeting, it's about health, fitness, all those things. And those are our family and consumer science agents, and they answer questions. If you've heard of cooking classes, how to can, all those sorts of things, they can help in those areas. And then probably our last area that I'll mention tonight is youth development, otherwise known as 4-H. And 4-H is all about developing youth to be successful, effective, good citizens. And so, when you think of 4-H, you might think of speeches or project groups, maybe livestock projects or demonstrations. And we'll use anything to work with you. So we'll make a project group over just about any youth interest, just to give us an opportunity to work with youth and help them develop effective living skills, how to make ethical decisions, communication, leadership, all those things that the workforce, that the employers are looking for in the workforce. So I wanted to share this with you, and one last thing about this is we've got some dollar figures on here, and most of them are associated with ag programming, simply because it's really easy to multiply out. If a farmer produces more on their acreage, costs are the same, and they produce more corn, well, guess what? They have bigger sales. So that's easy math. The kind of things that are harder to properly reflect are the life changes that come from our family science, consumer science programming in our youth programs. But we are making a difference. I hope you'll take time to review this. And we just want to use this as a way to tell you that we appreciate your partnership. We're doing the best we can in regard to making that a worthwhile investment for you, for the citizens of the county. We're always interested in feedback. If you see needs in the community that we can address with an educational program, that's what we're here for. So let us help you and serve you. We appreciate the partnership. And one shameless plug for a 4-H fundraiser we have coming up. Here's a little flyer about it. This money that we raise in this helps pay the way for 4-Hers who don't have the economic means to go to camp. We want them to get to go. And so that's what this money is used for, to help our youth go to the junior camps, 4th and 5th graders. So thank you. We appreciate your partnership.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody have any commissioners have any questions of Ms. Norman? All right, thank you. Appreciate all y'all do, Rebecca. All right, now our hotel motel tax report. Ms. Wiggins, our trustee, good evening.
Good evening. And thank you, Mayor, and thank you to this Honorable County Commission for allowing us another opportunity to come before you and keep you abreast on what we're doing in the office. So today I have with me two of our important members of our audit committee, and that would be my Chief Deputy, Sydney Green, and as of January 7th, our new staff accountant, who is Thomas Fletcher. I'm so pleased because he brings a lot of experience from an accountant's perspective, as well as he used to work for the library, so we're pleased to have him back in Montgomery County. So the other members of our team are Giselle Ortiz, who takes care of our monthly reports, makes sure that we know what's being collected, what we need to look out for. As well, she helps us to prep for our reports and our audit process. Lastly, Paul Ellis, on an as-needed basis from Thurman Campbell, will join us, and we're very grateful for that. As you know, this is a new process for us, so he will, upon a phone call, will meet us and will help us with our audits. So I wanted to start with our executive summary. The purpose for us performing these hotel-motel audits is simply because there's a private act that says we must. So we shall, and we have started that process. The audits are performed either on-site at the hotels, or they can come into our office, whatever is best for them and for us. The main goal is that we get these relationships established so that we can get the information we need to make sure we're accountable to you, so that you can make great decisions for our county. And as you know, I have to make sure I share this, we don't have any historical data or benchmarks, so this is an organic process for us, and we are constantly looking at ways to be better, even as we have audited thus far, because we want to make sure it's the best product so that you have good data to know what's going on in the county. So our purpose is mainly to ensure that we have what's actually being reported is what we are due, make sure that we're calculating it properly, and that we are paid in a timely manner. The program also helps us to ensure that we're following the guidelines given to us, as well if there are some tax-exempt guests, that they are afforded that exemption. As committed, we want to keep you abreast of what's going on. So let's share our commitment. I'll refresh you on our commitment in December. Our commitment was to build a process for accountability and transparency, create a baseline, and continually improve the process as we perform more audits. We committed to making sure we have resources, which include people, time, and talent, make sure that we share the results and the findings. There are 44 places in Montgomery County that fit into our audit pool, and in order to reach this goal, we need to average approximately 11 hotels, motels, or campgrounds to make this happen. So here's our progress from late November to last week. We've completed 7 audits. We have one reportable finding, and we also had some educational moments. And you may ask, what is that? It is people who said to us, why are you doing this? We've never done this before. Why do we have to give you our profit and loss statements? Why do you need my income tax return? As well, some have said, we never knew that we could approach the trustee to help us complete the documents properly. So we appreciate the fact that you're letting us come to your office or you're coming to us to accommodate us. So we're helping to build that relationship. We want more rooms occupied. One area we need to make sure we're always cognizant of is how do we conduct ourselves when we find errors. If we find material errors, then we must further test the data and make sure that we're recalculating and go back and go as deep as we need to and even ask for more information. Hotel management has usually been very open to our improvements and suggestions, and I'll have an instance where I'll show you where we do get timely payment if we find that there is an error. We talked about and we shared with you some of the documentation that is outlined by the Office of the Comptroller that we use that includes the tax return, profit and loss statements, lodging schedules. It's quite the undertaking, but it helps us to get exactly what we need. Now, to what you really want to know is our audits that we have completed. When we look at the areas that you see that are highlighted in green, what happens here is we've looked at the occupancy form, we've looked at the sales tax, we've looked at their profit and loss statements, and we saw some margin of differentiation, but we also saw that it was marginal, so it did not impact the funds that were due to us, but we still made note of it. As well, we have at the bottom, there was a hotel who owed us, it turned out as we looked at their documents, there was a discrepancy in what they were reporting to us. And while minor, it was $85. It was $85 we didn't have before. So that hotel, we talked about the situation. This is one where the client was in person, and if it weren't for the fact that we were about to close, he wanted to bring us a check immediately. He wanted to be in compliance, and we helped him to see what he was missing on his statement. So he made sure he brought us a check the next day. That's the kind of word we want out on the street, that when we have an audit that is a credible audit and that we can collect in a timely manner. On the audit form, you also see what are the documents that we looked at, when did the audit take place. There is some prep that happens before, and of course, there is a follow-up after as we walk through our notes and make sure that we are documenting the audit. And on the end, I wanted you to see who are the folks who are going out to that audit. This is a process that has to happen under dual control to help us to even make sure that we don't have any blind spots in our office. So overall, our objectives and our conclusions were we asked ourselves, were the hotel occupancy tax revenue return, were the number of rooms rented, and the exemptions claimed accurate and complete? And generally, the answer is yes. Again, the $85 that we realized is actually less than 0.005% of the hotel occupancy taxes that we collect during a 9-month period, which is what we looked at for those hotels. So with that, at this moment, we feel like we have hotels and motels who are generally in compliance and keep good records because we have ways to measure and temper that. So what is our commitment to you going forward? It will be a continuum of what we have told you in December. We will continue to come before you, continue to be open for you to ask for meetings and look at the documentation if you'd like to learn more. We'll make sure that we continue to actively request these random audits because sometimes it does require another level. It requires a follow-up email or a follow-up call, and in a few cases, a certified letter. We stand ready to perform those duties and want to make sure if you need the data that you have access to it. We will continue to request the presence of an internal audit firm like Thurman Campbell to make sure that we don't have any blind spots. We are new at this. We are committed to getting it right. We all have some background, have some of this in our background, but we're not experts yet. We will continue to assess our internal capacity and let you know should we have a need. As well, we're also looking at the time and the salary dollars that it takes to perform these audits and prep them and come back as well to see if that's a better fit for us to continue to do it or get your support, whether we need external expertise. Because as you know, we are the banker, we are the investment firm, we are accountable to you, and we are surely accountable to collecting our tax dollars. and keeping accurate records. So I'll stop there and see what questions do you have for us.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to tell you how much we appreciate on behalf of the Audit Committee your diligence, the process, and how well the team's working. Thanks, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of Ms. Wiggins? Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes, ma'am. I did want to ask, we have some hotels in town that are permanent residency hotels. Do they apply to this as well?
Every hotel and motel in Montgomery County is accountable to reporting on a monthly basis. Some of them have higher occupancy rates where you have 30-day or longer. They all turn in that exemption form. There's a form that tells us what their name is, the date they checked in, and whether they're still in that hotel. So they have to turn that record in every month.
Okay.
But no one has 100% occupancy of a full-time renter at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Ms. Wiggins, to you and your staff, thank y'all.
Thank you so much. I
Appreciate what y'all
appreciate them
do.
being by my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is zoning. We have one zoning case tonight, CZ1 2019, application of Leonard and Deborah Schultz from AG to E1. See, Mr. Tyndall is making his way to the podium to get his presentation up. So, Mr. Tyndall, when you're ready, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commission. Been a slow start here to 2019 with zoning cases. We have one before you tonight. It's the application of Leonard and Deborah Schultz. Our case number is CZ1 2019. It's 1.2 acres on North Hinton Road, about 4,300 feet east of North Hinton and Irwin Road. This is on the eastern corner of the county on the Cheatham County line. Property is, as I mentioned, 1.2 acres. It is currently ag, so it needs 1.5 acres to be compliant for a new residence. They're requesting to tear down the home that's there and put up a double wide. Therefore, they're requesting to go to E1 estate lots, which allows down to 1 acre if they can get septic. They currently have septic on the property. I will note that the homeowners have attempted to make purchases of additional land. As you can see, they have a funny shaped piece of property, and they were trying to buy about a quarter or a third of an acre to get this up to 1.5 acres and be in compliance, and they just were unsuccessful in that. It's in the rural area. As you can see, it's surrounded with ag and some scattered E1 uses in lighter green out in this area. Here's North Hinton Road approaching the site out there. Here's the site on the left with the large pine tree on it. There's the existing home that's going to be removed, and like I mentioned, a double wide or manufactured home will be put in its place. Here it is from further down in the street. And there's the overall view again. We didn't receive any comments or objections from any city or county departments. Again, it's in the Sango planning area. Staff's recommended approval. Planning Commission's also recommended approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The E1 estate single family zoning request is not out of character with other residential properties in the area. And the E1 single family request will bring the existing 1.2 acre parcel into conformance with the zoning resolution. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall? Thank you, Mr. Tyndall.
Okay.
At this time, we will go into public hearing to hear comments in regard to CZ1 2019. I will first call for those that would like to speak on behalf of the application, and then anyone that would like to speak in opposition. I would remind anyone, if you'd like to speak, you'll be called to the podium over here to the right. If you would, just please give us your name and address. So at this time, we'll have anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ1 2019. Anyone in the audience to speak on behalf? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ1 2019? Anyone to speak in opposition? All right, we'll now close the public hearing and go into our resolutions. Our first resolution is 1931, resolution amending the budget for the Montgomery County trustee for security cameras. I think this is a request from Ms. Wiggins. She currently has some areas in her office that aren't covered by security cameras. Ms. Wiggins, help me. Is this about $16,000? A little over 16. Jeff, do you know the exact amount? 16,296. Any questions regarding Resolution 1931? Resolution 1932 is a resolution opposing education voucher legislation. I'm going to yield the floor to Commissioner Leverett.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, colleagues and fellow commissioners. This resolution 19-3-2 is an opportunity for us to be proactive to some legislation that is coming before us soon that's pending under the Tennessee General Assembly that will create a voucher program allowing students to use public education funds to pay for private school tuition. There's also wording called opportunity scholarships. You may have even heard it called education savings, tax credits, or even parents' choice. The reason why this resolution is before you is because that we want to make sure that we're sending a message to our legislators that we are good stewards of public taxpayer dollars, and that at this time we don't find that it is necessary or appropriate to use public funds and taxpayer dollars to fund private education. I know we all believe in education, and so do I, but we're all stewards of taxpayer dollars. And so at this point, we don't want to take a wait-and-see approach, because this is not the best way to communicate that to our school system and to our students. As a matter of fact, as of today, at the Tennessee County Commission Association meeting, Mr. Charlie Curtis even stated emphatically that the association as a whole was opposed to school vouchers, and it would be a terrible choice, his exact words, quote, for any county government to approve this. And so also there's now currently no data that states that children outperform children in private schools or charter schools or schools that receive voucher outperform those in public schools. As of today, our other colleagues in other counties have also passed similar or exact same resolutions, and those counties are Rutherford, Knox, Williamson, Houston, Wilson, and Murfreesboro. And so I'm asking you all to please just look at this issue, and let's send a message to our students, to our teachers who will be affected by this the most, and to our legislators that we believe in the public education here in Montgomery County School System. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Our next resolution is Resolution 1934. Resolution 1933, I'm sorry. Resolution approving an amendment to the Economic Impact Plan for the 7th and Main Development Area. I'm going to let Mr. Harvey explain this to you.
Okay. You approved an Economic Impact Plan in October of last year for this project. The plan included a payout of eligible expenses through the tax increment that's created, has a cap. The only question is whether or not it will be paid in 15 years or it will take some more time to pay off those eligible expenses. So the use of the increment is asked to be extended from 15 years to 20 years. It's no more additional money than you approved previously of the increment going to the project.
Any questions? Commissioner Harper?
Quick question. What's the difference in cost for us, that 5-year extension?
Nothing. You know, once you approve a tax increment, you're approving a concept. The increment has to be there to make the payments. The eligible costs are already determined in the project. So these eligible costs will be paid by the increment. The increment has to exist for the payment to be made. So you're paying the same amount of money, you're just paying it over 20 years instead of 15 years.
The, the max of the increment does not change. I think what,
That's right.
if I understand it correctly, and I'm trying to think of a hypothetical situation, if the increment was $100 a year and it was for 9 years, and the total increment was for $1,000, you never would get to the $1,000 because the time period of 9 years shuts it off. All this allows is for the increment, if it will not pay for it, which they don't think it will in 15 years, extends it out to 20 years. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
That probably wasn't a very good explanation, but I tried.
I'm flipping it, the example around. I'm thinking, I think in a framework that all the commissioners would understand, which would be the difference between a 15-year mortgage and a 20-year mortgage. Is there a difference in cost? Absolutely, there is. And that's the way I'm looking at it. And typically, when you would modify a contract, if I were negotiating a contract, I would hope that there would be something I receive if I do modify the contract to make it better. Then there would be some sweeten of that pot that I would receive then. So that's how I'm looking at it.
Well, the difference can also be expressed in this way somewhat. The amount of the increment is a commitment, and the time period is a projection of how long it's estimated that the incremental increase in tax will ultimately pay off that fixed sum. So let's say that we're going to pay that there are eligible costs of $100,000, but the increment is not enough to pay back that $100,000 worth of costs in 15 years. Then the projection that she requests is, I would like for it to be over 20 years. You won't pay more than the $100,000. And in like manner, if the increment is greater, and we've had some TIF experience that's been this way, where the increment creates a tax increase that's much greater, and so those funds come in, and they come in faster, and so what one that was projected to pay off in 10 years gets paid off maybe in 9. So it all has to do with how fast the tax increase creates money, and all the money of the increment goes to pay all of the eligible costs as quickly as possible. In this projection, they're just not sure it will pay off within 15 years. They may need an additional 5. I will tell you from a standpoint of approval, the IDB approved the original plan with the 15-year payout. You folks voted for that and accepted that. The IDB has approved the amendment, and we'll have to send it back to you just as they did the original one. And the only change is not how much the increment is, but that the payment period could go as much as 20 years. But they're forced to pay the entire increment that's realized every year, so it could be paid off sooner.
I'm still pretty hesitant on it. I'll just say that. I think that this is one of those things that we're probably going to have some more study on. I don't think it's quite as simple as it's 15 versus 20. I think it may be a little more complicated than that. So I appreciate what you're saying.
I'll be happy to talk with you otherwise and outside the meeting too, and
Sure.
pull all the numbers out for you. And we can go back and look at the original economic impact plan if you want to and compare that.
I just think it's a fairly complicated and technical issue.
Commissioner Pritchard?
So, Mr. Harvey, in essence, we're giving them a 5-year umbrella to hopefully realize the full amount of that increment?
Sure. I think, again, one way to maybe look at it is when the original proposal was made, they said, we think when we build this new complex, it will increase taxes this much. And we think that tax increase for our eligible costs will pay it off within 15 years. But they've looked at their building costs now and some of their expenses, and they think that that tax increment that they're going to create, it may take more than 15 years. So originally they could have asked you for a maximum of 20. They ask you for 15, they want to go to 20 now. But the numbers, the creation of the value is all they build on the property, the taxes go up, and the increment is available to cover those eligible costs. just over more than 15 years, up to 20 in this amendment, if that becomes necessary.
And in essence, if, say, the economy takes another hit like it did before, but they're still responsible for the full amount of that increment no matter what?
Well, the increment will go to the eligible costs, and it will go to the eligible costs until they're paid off. And if they're never paid off and they get to the cap, then we quit paying it. It expires. So, you know, the increment is the only thing that's ever available, and the increment is created by their tax payment.
Yeah, the only reason I was asking is because, in essence, this is truly hypothetical.
Yes, ma'am.
To a certain extent.
Yes, it's all based on, you've got somebody who's going to who's going to take a piece of property, this goes to the heart of a TIF, they're going to take a piece of property that realizes $20,000 a year in taxes. They're going to build a $4 million building on it, and so now it will pay $65,000 in taxes. I really don't know those numbers, I'm just using examples.
Yeah.
And so that $45,000 of increased tax is going to be available to pay the incremental cost each year of the eligible costs that are allowed by the statute. And the eligible costs are capped out and don't go up. Those are the same as were in the original approved plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on 1933? All right, 1934 is a resolution requesting the Clarksville-Montgomery County Regional Planning Commission to perform a study of the Montgomery County zoning resolution for purposes of amendment of the same or a use permit on review for structures and fences. Commissioners, I think Commissioner Joe Smith worked with Mr. Tyndall and Mr. Harvey to bring this forward. All this is basically asking the Planning Commission to study this matter. They will have to bring something back to this body to be voted on, to be approved, if they make any recommended changes. So all this is doing is requesting the Planning Commission to study this issue that basically we had two people speak to us about tonight. Any questions, Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. Wouldn't it be simpler for us just to sponsor a resolution with a change rather than having to go through the study?
What's the change?
To have, basically, I think what Commissioner Smith was looking for, and I talked with him as well, is to have the ordinance, and basically we're talking about chickens and poultry, to have that reflective of what the city ordinance is on that, to have it reflective of that.
I think the city ordinance has a lot of good points to it, but I think it's up to us to ask our professionals to prepare a document to bring back to us for us to approve. And I think that was the recommendation from not only, correct me if I'm wrong, from Mr. Harvey and Mr. Tyndall, to ask them to study it to bring it back before this body.
Is there some potential that we could, in the meantime, grandfather those people that are having issues with this particular issue? I'd like to kind of protect those folks.
Well, I don't know that you could grandfather them. I know that in the last 4.5 years, not only with Mr. Harvey, but also with Mr. Streeter and also with Dr. Ripple, we've had numerous conversations about it. I agree it needs to be changed.
Yes.
But I think we need to do it the right way.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're going about this in the right manner, and we're going about it in an efficient manner, and it should have been changed some time ago, in my opinion, but I'll leave it at that.
But I don't disagree that it needs to be changed. I promise you I don't. Commissioner Knight.
Well, I was going to agree with Commissioner Harper, but I also agree with the fact of getting it done properly. But I just wanted to ask, how long will this study take once initiated?
Mr. Tyndall?
We've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes right now, but I don't think this is going to be a terribly difficult item. We've already had discussions. Joe Smith's met with us at least twice. Rod Streeter's been in those discussions, as has Tim Harvey. So we've already laid some groundwork. I think the mayor put it right about not wanting to have unintended consequences. For instance, the city requires a permit every year of $10 or $15, I believe, to have your chickens. We need to make a decision whether or not we want to have a permit in the county or no permit. What distance is the appropriate distance? I would expect probably 2 months from now we could have something back to you for a vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the city allows roosters either, do they?
No roosters in
No
the city.
roosters, yeah, in the city.
Yeah.
But-
I don't believe it's just as easy as adopting theirs. I'm sorry, Commissioner Knight.
No, I understand, but it's just the fact that, you know, government has enough control in everybody's lives as it is already, and to be quite honest, telling me where I should keep my chickens, you know, just seems like an idiotic idea to me, personally. That's just me, but, I mean, honestly, I just wanted to see how long the process would take, because as Commissioner Harper stated, you know, we have these individuals out there right now. You heard these individuals who came up to speak, right? And we want to ensure that we're taking care of our constituents and they're not complaining to us saying, hey, government has so much control over what we do, you know, and then we're here having to consistently go over and over and over different documentation. So like Commissioner Harper said, we want to make sure that we handle this in a very efficient manner. But I get what you're saying, Mayor. But I just wanted to know how long it would take. Thank you.
And if I could just add one thing, I know in my conversations with Mr. Streeter, this is not something that they look to go out and enforce. And with all due respect to the two people that spoke, I don't know if it's a neighbor complaining or who it is, but when Mr. Streeter's office gets a call, it doesn't matter if it's for somebody's got a chicken house built too close to the property line, or that somebody's got a junk car parked on their lot, or whatever it may be. He has a duty that we've charged him with to go and respond to it. So I don't think they're out chicken house hunting. I promise you they're not. But we run into this a lot. And I know Mr. Streeter well enough. I'm not going to ask him in public to do it, but I know he'll work with the people that are involved in these cases, and we'll try to get this resolved as quick as we can. It may come back to this body, and this body may not approve it. I mean, I don't know, so, but I'm not going to say anything else. Mr. Tindall, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, but Mayor, if I may just kind of in 1 minute capture
Sure.
what the issue is here. Sure. So when you're in the county, if you have less than 5 acres and you have any kind of livestock on your property, it needs to be 200 feet from the nearest property line. A square acre is 200 feet by 200 feet. So you have to have basically 4 acres. 4 square acres is 400 and approximately 20 feet by 420. You could have that coop or stall or whatever right in the smack dab center of a square. What this is trying to do is mimic what's over 5 acres, is you can go down to 50 feet from your property line. So we're looking to, basically we're more difficult on properties less than 5 acres. The real crux of the problem is the county has continued to grow out, and we have the rural and city meeting each other at some point. We're going to also look at, is this R1 or ag only? There's a lot of things to consider, but we've been looking at a lot of this already.
Thank you, Mr. Tindall. Commissioner Johnson.
I said I wasn't going to say anything. I really did.
You didn't tell me that. I said that'd be okay if you didn't.
But being on the Building and Codes Committee and being on Animal Control Committee at the same time, I can tell you assuredly that in our efforts to protect the people who have chickens, we also have an obligation to protect the people who don't have chickens. It's fine to have chickens. It may not be fine for your neighbor to have chickens. That's the problem. The Animal Control and Building and Codes, just as the mayor said, they are going out in response to complaints. That's why they're going out. So there is a problem somewhere. I am not saying that it is a problem for people to have chickens. Please don't get that wrong. I don't want to be on the front page that I'm against chickens. But it does have a root in complaints. So that's why I believe that the study is a good idea, because that gives us a base that gives us a firm footing in which to make a decision that will benefit and protect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Any other questions regarding 1934? 1935 is a resolution to approve the Montgomery County Capital Assets Policies and Procedures. Commissioners, Jeff, you correct me if I'm wrong, we have a new software that helps us track our assets. This creates policies and procedures that follow that software. Is that correct?
Correct. And there's some more forms for departments to fill out to keep up and keep track of their assets, holding them more accountable as well.
Any questions of Mr. Taylor? Resolution 1936 is a resolution to rescind Resolution 1912 regarding design fees for a classroom addition to West Creek Elementary School. 2 months ago, when we actually voted to defer the Kirkwood campus, this was on our agenda. It was on our agenda by mistake. And all this does is for somewhere down the road, make the record straight that Resolution 1912 has been rescinded. The school system has not asked for the money. They realized the mistake just like we did. Any questions on 1936? Under our report, School Liaison, Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, just a couple items of note. The school board representative in District 3, Danny Kittrell, is going to be resigning that position. His wife actually got a job out of state, so he'll be leaving. If you're interested in or know of someone that's interested in that position, please let the school board know. And they'll be appointing that, I believe, next month. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Also, school board chair Margaret Pace and I visited the Rossview Middle School today. I visited with the principal, Dr. Laura Barnett, in regards to she had come to speak to us about the overcrowding, and so we visited the school today. It was really enlightening for me personally. If you'd like to talk to me about that visit, I'd be glad to share the results of that visit. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. Under county mayor nominations, we have 3. Animal Care and Control, it's a 2-year term. Commissioner Jason Knight nominated to fill the unexpired term, or Commissioner Brandon Butts, term to expire January 2020. Judicial Commissioner, a 1-year term. Joe Papastasis, part-time employee, nominated to serve another 1-year term to expire March 2020. And under county mayor appointments, Clarksville Montgomery County Community Action Agency, Kyle Johnson appointed to replace Jeff Truitt as county mayor representative. You can see, commissioners, under your reports filed, we have no old business that I know of. Any new business? Any commissioners? Any new business? And then under announcements, I think Ms. Norman spoke about this, but there'll be a 4-H chili fundraiser lunch on Tuesday, March 19th from 11 to 2 at the Civic Hall. Tickets are $5 for chili, drink, and a dessert. And please come out and support our 4-H clubs. And I know I saw, I think in the report Ms. Norman gave us, almost 3,000 kids in our community participated in 4-H activities. So this would allow a child to go to 4-H camp that may not be able to. So I'd ask you to please go out and support that. With no further business, we're adjourned.